I feel like this music review I'm going to do today is a little bit more on the serious side, so I don't want to do a silly intro. So let's just dive right in. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Matt Diazable coming at you with the new music review. If you just now found me, thank you. I talk about music in the alternative hardcore world and pretty much any type of music because it's kind of fun and I love listening to music. If you're back again, thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. Today, I am checking out the latest release from a band called Sour, called Heaven USA. If you don't know anything about Sour, they are a Chicago area based hardcore band that's been around, I think, post COVID and everything. So they're a relatively new band. I discovered them because they came to South Korea recently in Seoul to play a show, and which, you know, once I found out, I was like, oh, this is something really big here because I didn't realize that the band was like mostly made up of Asian Americans, specifically Korean adoptee Americans. And me being half Korean myself, that kind of like caught my attention because you don't see too many Asians in hardcore, let alone Koreans. And so once I, saw that they were coming here, I kind of did some research on the band and everything. This particular album, Heaven USA, is a very interesting piece of art, expression, music, especially in the hardcore scene, because it is talking about mainly the lead vocalist's journey through being a Korean adoptee in America, going from Korea to being raised up in rural America. And, it's a very interesting concept because like half of the album is talking about, his like, I guess, upbringing in that time of being confused, clearly, looking Asian amongst other people who aren't Asian and just trying to find their identity amongst themselves. While the latter half of the album kind of talks about more about like forging your own path and figuring out who you are on your own terms. So this is a very deep and very, very kind of profound record that I was really happy to listen to, and really like awesome that I got to see them play here in Seoul, South Korea, of all places. So very, 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 what can I say, serious record. There's a lot to talk about here with this one. I would say this latest release from Sour, Heaven USA, it's not simply just another hardcore release or a heavy album coming out this year. If anything, it's a living documentation of displacement, rage, and, feeling the sense of reclaiming who you are. The record is clearly humming with a lot of distortion and heaviness, but underneath everything, there is something a little bit deeper running in the veins of this record. And that is the Korean adoptee experience of searching for their identity, through an ocean of paperwork, culture, and just silence that they have to endure a lot of the times that a lot of us don't know, including myself being half Korean. It's a record where, every riff feels like a wound just reopening, and every scream is just like, someone from this world of Korean adoptees shouting out who they are for the first time ever and just really discovering their real name and just who they are. And I would say the band has done a really good job of, weaving between chaos and control with a lot of precision that gives the album a very deliberate feel to it. The deep grooves and the pounding drums that run through tracks like Hot Jok and Heaven USA really establish a very kind of a sonic identity crisis here. One that shifts from, tight fury to heavy, dragging menace. These guys are doing a really good job of letting out their emotions and just carving something out really special here. And there's this very interesting tension between speed and weight, clarity and distortion, becoming the album's language for, belonging and alienation. Even when riffs kind of blur together, the music never really loses its direction. It feels like, you're caught between two countries, two sleeves, two identities, and you're just being pulled back and forth between all this mess within your head. And so they really translated that into their music here. But then you have the songs Desperia Blues and Dokebi Stomp that really snarl and snarl with a lot of fury. These songs have a very thrashy, stomping, and howling feel to them. But then you get some quieter moments like on the songs One for Life or Peacetime Child that really open up the emotional underbelly of this record. And so in these moments, the noise doesn't really attack you or anything. If anything, it's just breathing gently and giving life to the music. Because here they have some washed out guitars and rolling drums that allow, a lot of reflection to just seep on through. And so it gives that suggestion that, the fight for identity isn't always about being on the offense, but, sometimes just like taking things a little bit back and being more reflective and just letting the motion take you over. So in these uncertain pauses and moments of peace, you get this feeling of both like a very earned yet fragile feeling from listening to this music. The bass playing on this album is probably like the backbone of this album because it is very groovy on every single track, especially on the songs Canary Yellow and Tombstone with Wings, because the bass playing here is really grounding all the chaos that they're making here, and it kind of almost translates into almost something very spiritual. It's giving the record a pulse of like, you know, something that feels very ancestral, like there's something more here that's just really vibrating underneath the surface of everything. And so that physicality from the bass really turns Heaven USA from not just, you know, music, it feels like muscle and a human flesh just breathing, and a way to survive in a world that is very you know, confusing with who you are in that world. Even in the moments of where the band kind of stumbles a little bit, like on the uneven swing of Angels Reside in Fulton County, the quick bleed between Hotjok and the title track of the album just feel very purposeful. Like it feels like a sonic metaphor for an adoptee's life, because it can be quite disjointed sometimes, and just like the music here, their life can shift so quickly. And it feels like everything on this record really carries a weight of like duality to it, whether it be clear or gritty playing, fast and slow playing, or, you know, very furious in one moment, then very tender the next. And I feel like the production does a really good job of just beautifully capturing all of that, because every hit, every blow here feels raw enough to, you know, never really lose its human edge to it. Then you get to the emotional core of the record, which is Omma, I'm in Purgatory, which, you know, is just not another heavy track, but, you know, it really anchors the album in a lot of emotion and a lot of themes about, you know, an adoptee's life and just the confusion that they go through. And so this song talking about mothers feels like a very big question, while also a feeling of absence that just really just brings all the songs together with a very emotionally gravity to it. And so the pain of loss just really radiates on this record and on this song. Every riff, every scream just feels like, you know, a long lost conversation with someone you might never get the answers that you're having this conversation with. And I would say Sour's achievement with this record isn't, you know, about, you know, being perfect or anything like that. It's more about representation. And as the Korea Times noted, the band is part of a growing movement of adoptees and Koreans who are feeling a bit displaced in life, who are challenging how punk should be able to express its identity and pain. While other punk bands and punk people might use it as a rebellion, Sour here is using it as a remembrance. Their riffs are archives, their drums are protest chants, and their vocals open up wounds and call them art. And I would say the beauty of this album is that it never really chooses between, you know, anger and sorrow, east or west, memory or movement. Instead, it kind of like lives in this weird messy middle where songs like Dysphoria Blues meets Peacetime Child, while Dokebi Stomp dances with Want for Life. There's a really, like I said earlier, there's a lot of balance on this record. To put it simply, Sour's Heaven USA, you know, isn't about finding a home. It's more about building one with distortion, with grief, and with blood memories. In doing so, Sour proves that punk can be still quite profound. A place where, you know, the displaced can finally get to sound like themselves. So this latest release from Sour, Heaven USA, I gotta say, it's a quite fantastic and profound album that just, you know, challenges a lot of norms in the punk scene, the hardcore scene, and pushes boundaries of topics that aren't really discussed that very often, and, you know, showing representation. So it's hitting so many awesome marks that I can't help it, but this possibly might be one of the best records of this year, one of the best records I've heard in a good while. So I would have to give Sour, Heaven USA, a good and solid 9.5 out of 10. Links down below. Tell me what you think about this album. Give me some recommendations, and like always, see you in the pit.
Been thinking good things about you. Cool and warm, good things about you.